Hey y'all, I'm Brooke Hoover, a Louisiana native, actor, writer, and comedian. I've lost 100 pounds through diet and exercise, or shall I say, lifestyle changes. My 20-year and counting health journey has taught me that just like taking a diet pill for weight loss, body positivity doesn't magically happen overnight. I'm working on regaining my self-esteem and rekindling my love affair with Cajun and Southern comfort food in a healthier way, all the while juggling eating as clean as I can, reestablishing myself in the entertainment industry, which, as we know, is historically fat-phobic, all the while showing my inner fat girl some love. That's fat with a PH. Pretty hot and tempting. Let me tell y'all a tale or two. So, hey, everybody, it's the Who's Dat Fat Girl podcast, and we have a special guest today. Her name is Shaele, and we actually found each other on Facebook on a podcasters group. And I'm really glad that Shaele reached out to me. And it turns out we have a big, among many other bonds that we shared just talking in the past maybe 3 weeks or so. One of our biggest bonds is that we both have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I have seen it places called PCOS sisters. Y'all get the pun intended, which I mean is a little cheesy, but we're gonna go with it. So Shaele, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to tell us? I mean, aside from what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so hello, I am Shaele. Um, I usually lead with I'm a mom to a 7-year-old because that's what I usually identify with, but I am trying really hard to lead with other things now. So, I am a sourdough baker outside of my, quote day job, which I work for myself. I am a online business manager and tech VA. So that keeps me busy. And then I bake sourdough in my free time. I was diagnosed with PCOS when I was like 19 in college. And at the time, I knew I wanted to have babies, and that definitely changed my life. So I'm sure we'll get into all of that.
Oh, we
But
will.
that is me.
Awesome. And we were diagnosed like pretty much right around the same time, which is really funny, strange, not funny, haha. But I do love that you're a sourdough baker. I love sourdough bread. They used to have it at Cracker Barrel. I don't know if y'all have it in your neck of the woods because Shayla's completely across the country in Portland, the Portland area. Do
Yeah,
y'all have
just
Cracker
outside of
Barrel?
Portland.
Do you have Cracker Barrels there?
So, we got our first Cracker Barrel, um, ironically in the middle of COVID.
What?
I've never gone because it's like 15 miles away, which is a good, half hour, 45 minutes, and I'm like, "I don't know if I'm wanting to drive that far for a restaurant."
Yeah.
Um, so we only have one that I know of. There's probably more in, Southern Oregon, but, here in the Portland area, there's just the one.
Hey, because I'm sure y'all have a lot of other good restaurants where they're like, "Please, we just need one Cracker Barrel on the side of the interstate. That's it. Let's keep it moving."
Yes.
Literally. They used to make like, they used to have, like, sourdough bread loaves for sale back in the day,
Okay.
and that's, like, really just a shame that that's, like, my first thing that I think of, but then also I think of San Francisco. I know there's a link with sourdough bread in San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco's known for their sourdough. People say that the taste of sourdough from San Francisco is very, very specific, but sourdough from anywhere that you get it is specific because sourdough is literally like the hyper local yeast in the air that it's
Ah.
growing in. So people that make sourdough in Italy, their sourdough is gonna it's not gonna be totally different, but you're gonna taste differences between their sourdough and sourdough that I make here in the Pacific Northwest. Like
Oh, and I was about to say your sourdough is Shayla specific or Shayla Pacific. I know. I like the puns. I'm like a 42-year-old girl. Why am I doing dad jokes? But, like, for some reason, like, I just started doing dad jokes during the pandemic, and
I
they're
love dad jokes. My daughter, she's 7, almost 8, and she's started making her own dad jokes,
Ah!
and she'll even, like, laugh at her own jokes if no one else is laughing at them and, like, point out how funny they were. And I don't know if I'm very proud or
I think you
if
should
I'm
be very
concerned.
proud. She'll always entertain herself. Like, I'm an only
It's true.
child, so she'll always have herself to entertain, so that's a good thing. I mean, my boyfriend laughs at his own jokes as well, and he turned out just fine. Kind of. So, Shayla, let's dive in, as they say. So, you told us when you were diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And just to fill everybody in on polycystic ovarian syndrome, if y'all listen to the Who's Dat Fat Girl podcast, if you're a friend of Brooke, a friend of Shayla, you probably know what PCOS is. But if you don't, just in case, general, as I always say, not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV. Shayla and I are not doctors, but we are people who have experienced PCOS, which I don't know if I've ever met a doctor of mine who has experienced PCOS. So we are pretty much experts because we are living with this every day. So PCOS is an endocrine disorder. It is basically regulated, your system's regulated by your thyroid. So a lot of the symptoms are hormonal, mimicking, like, I don't want to say they're mimicking like perimenopause, but some symptoms are similar to that, in that, sometimes you grow hair on your face instead of hair on your head. And what Shayla and I were just talking about, we're lucky that we have hair on our heads, because some PCOS friends, they have some male pattern baldness because you are producing too much testosterone. Your body cannot channel that insulin, so you have to be very careful about developing type 2 diabetes, etc. Having children's very hard. Losing weight is very hard. Two things with PCOS that are very hard to do, that are very, very, very um, part of, I would say, being a woman. So it's a really shitty disease to have for our demographic, being that we're female, because sometimes it makes you feel not so pretty. Hence, fat girl costumes. Hence, who's that fat girl, trying to always find the pretty hot and tempting despite the crappy symptoms. Shayla, you were diagnosed around when you were 19. And so tell me, how did you feel like you had it? Did you feel you had it? How did you know you had it? What brought you to discovering that you had it?
Yeah, so I was in college and I had changed from like a pediatrician to like my first female adult doctor.
Mm,
And I don't know if she was just like really progressive at the time or what, but she had a specific focus in women's health and
wow.
women's like struggles of like hormone imbalances. So she actually brought it up to me when I had met with her. I was talking about how I couldn't lose weight despite like doing Weight Watchers, like bike riding, because I lived on campus, so I was riding my bike all across campus, and like I wasn't losing weight at all.
Mhm,
Nothing was
mhm,
changing. Um, so we did like lots of blood tests and ruled things out like diabetes, since that is something that my mom's mom had and
mhm,
my dad's mom.
mhm,
So that was like the first question was, is this diabetes? So we did blood tests, and when she told me it was PCOS, like I never heard of it. I didn't know what it was, but when I started researching, my first question was like, can I have kids?
mhm,
Like, I was 19, I had just gotten engaged to my now ex-husband, but we were freshly engaged, like, we knew we wanted to have kids in life, and now I have this huge looming question of, can I have kids? Everything I'm reading on, Reddit at the time is saying,
mm,
I'm 35, 40, we've been trying for 10 years
mhm,
and we can't get pregnant. We've done IVF, we've done all of the things, and we've now gotten to the point of like, we're done trying.
mhm,
Um, so it was definitely like an eye-opening discovery of a disease in me
Mhm.
because, you know, 19 is really young to be diagnosed.
Yeah.
Uh, and it made a lot of sense, but it also was like, "Shit, why me?"
Yeah.
Like, I yes, I see that I'm overweight, but I also am like, "Why can't it be an easy solution? Why does it have to be something so difficult?" Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Did it feel like it gave you, though, a little bit of I mean, everybody's using this term nowadays, so I will too. Did it feel like it gave you, like, a little bit of grace in that it's like, it's okay, I'm not losing weight. It's not that weight loss is hard because I'm a, shitty, crappy, bad person, which is what I used to tell myself. It's because I have an issue that's making it 20 times harder to lose weight, and then carrying that weight makes the symptoms worse, so it's kinda like a cycle, like a double-edged sword, if you will. Did it make you feel any better?
Yeah, it made me feel a little bit better in knowing that, like, it wasn't something that I could restrict my calories of
Yeah.
and,
Mhm.
like, essentially eat my way out of, right?
Right.
Like, eating a salad every day for every single meal isn't going to dissipate the symptoms. It also, like, was the 2 puzzle pieces finally fitting together to explain so many things that I was having of irregular periods,
Mhm.
right? Like, there's nothing worse than being in college and
Mhm.
having an irregular period.
Yep. Dorm room, did y'all have communal bathrooms? We had communal bathrooms at the end of the hallway. I don't know if
So,
you stayed on
the
campus.
dorm that I lived in, every 2 rooms shared a bathroom.
Okay.
So, that was nice.
Yeah, that's more
Um
humane. Yeah, than what we yeah, but it's still not easy, still not
Yeah,
easy.
but so it was like, "Well, shit, is this, like, an irregular period, or am I pregnant somehow?" Like, "Oh
Exactly.
my
Yeah.
god," like,
Yeah.
I don't remember drinking that much,
Right,
like,
right, right. Yeah.
and then it's, like, that crazy feeling of, like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
So, I pretty much immediately started on metformin,
Yeah, me too.
um and that was like a whirlwind experience. It did not help me at all. It made me like violently ill every time I took it, even like
Stomach?
tapering down doses.
What was it, stomach issues?
Mhm.
One of my best friends is on it and, or was on it, and it gave her incredibly bad stomach issues. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean like it definitely like gave me some validation of I'm not crazy and what I'm struggling with, you
Yeah.
know?
I think that's, like, the big thing. It's like, no, we're not crazy. It's something like, a lot of times, like, when there's an illness or disease, people need to realize that's why people say, "Be kind to everyone," because we don't know what somebody's going through, and it's very true, and I know, it's not like, thank God, we don't have, I mean, cancer or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I am able to walk, but we're still carrying with us these things, and we might look all right, but, symptom-wise, my symptoms have become more like mental issues, if you will, or a bad symptom for me, was always, like, the facial hair. So, I don't know if you ever experienced any of those kinda symptoms
Yes.
as well?
Yes. Definitely like I don't get, like a full beard or mustache or things like that, but
Right.
like the long, thick, dark hair that just grows overnight,
Yeah.
like and I go like this and I can feel it and it's just like no matter
Yeah.
how many times, I pluck it out or whatever, they're always coming in.
Yeah.
Um just having like hairier arms.
Mhm.
Um it makes me feel less feminine.
Yeah. Same. I agree. I agree, and it's, basically everything society has told you you need to be a perfect box pretty person. PCOS slaps you against all that,
Yeah.
and it's just, like, a lot of effort, like, I mean, I joke, but, like, I look like a normal person, but I have done so much, like, beauty stuff, but I don't really, like, tell people that because that's not my brand, But yeah, like I've spent so much time like at the estheticians for laser hair removal and electrolysis. And it's just it's maddening. Electrolysis though is slowly starting to finally work.
Well,
But
that's good.
yeah, so that's good. But you know what? That's an aesthetic thing. I think one thing that we will circle back to that's very a positive thing is that you were able to get pregnant in spite of having PCOS, which is one of the hardest things people struggle with. That was one of your biggest worries. So,
Mhm.
how about tell us a little bit of a tale about that, and how about give us like maybe a little timeline, and we'll probably segue into the other thing we're going to talk about here, which you already know. But give us a little timeline. How did that happen?
Yeah,
Well,
so
we know how it happened. Like we know where babies come from, but you know,
so when my ex-husband and I, graduated from college, we, got married, and then we started talking about starting a family. We both had, like, good paying jobs, which looking back, I'm like, "Shit, they really weren't that good paying."
but that's good.
Um
At the time, they were. They felt
At the
it. They
time they
felt
were,
it.
yes. So this is I graduated 2014, so this is, early 2015. Um, we were like, "We're gonna try and get pregnant." Now, when I first was diagnosed with PCOS, my mom started having a lot of clicking for herself of like, does she have PCOS?
Mm,
Because so many of the symptoms that I have, she also has and also struggled with. And one of the things that she had mentioned to me at one point is that when she had my older brother, he's 4 years older than me, her and my dad tried getting pregnant relatively soon afterwards, and it took them 4 years to get pregnant.
wow.
It wasn't until my mom went on birth control and then went off birth control that
Mhm.
they immediately got pregnant with me.
I've heard of
And
that
then
happening. Mhm.
so after that, my mom I don't know if she went back on birth control and then immediately went off of it and had my younger brother, but, my younger brother is only, like, 16 months younger than I am, so he and I are very close
Mhm.
in that fertility window.
Yep.
So when my ex-husband and I decided we're gonna try and start our family now, I was already on birth control to help regulate my period and help regulate
Right.
some of the symptoms. Um, I was like, "Okay, this is when I'm going off birth control."
Mhm.
This is our, like we have, like, a, 30-day window really
Yeah.
to conceive, otherwise I need to go back on birth control and restart this whole process.
Yeah.
Um, I went off birth control, like, uh, March 31st, April 1st kinda thing, and, I had a positive pregnancy test, like, May 5th.
Ah.
So, it was
Wow.
an immediate, um, conception there.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and then
wonderful.
it was, and, I mean, like, my daughter's delivery was rather traumatic, but none of it was
Mhm.
related to PCOS, which is
Word.
good. She was
Word.
just dramatic, which is no surprise because she still is
That's how
dramatic.
she is. She's a dramatic type of person, like you said.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, the world revolves around her, and, like, she lets everyone know that.
That's great.
Um,
Hey, she's fat. Well, she's too young to be fat with the PH, but, well, anybody,
yes,
theoretically, she's PHAT, right?
yes.
That's
So
really awesome, Shayla, and congratulations because, again, it's hard enough as it is, and it's
mhm.
hard even harder with PCOS. I just want people to really understand that.
Yeah, and I we were very lucky that I got pregnant pretty much immediately. And I recognize that that's not the case for so many women that have PCOS. But I also am like, I was 23 when I
Mhm,
gave birth to her.
mhm.
And so many women don't try to have a baby until they're 30, 35,
Right.
where, you know, your old age
Yep, yep. Mhm,
at
quote,
that
unquote.
point.
Mhm.
So I know that I had, like, age on my side of being younger and knowing what I was up against to try and get pregnant as quickly as possible.
Mhm. Were you on taking any supplements or doing anything lifestyle-wise to kind of, like, say, like, "Screw you, PCOS, I'm gonna get pregnant," or was it do you think the missing piece, what worked really was the birth control and then going off of it?
I think the missing piece was going on birth control and then going off of it. I was on metformin at the same time, and
Mhm.
continued taking metformin up until, like, 17 weeks, I think.
Okay.
But I had really bad morning sickness pretty much from the
Mm.
time I had a positive test until I gave birth.
Mhm.
Um, so I lost, like, 30 pounds in my pregnancy, which
Whoa!
is yeah, it was crazy.
Whoa!
I pretty much could keep down, like, nacho Lunchables,
Yeah?
and zucchini. That was,
That's
like
so random.
yeah,
But
so
whoa!
that was and, like, it wasn't related to my PCOS or anything, it's
Right.
just like I said, she's dramatic.
Yeah, she likes nacho Lunchables and zucchini, clearly.
Yes.
That's funny. So, Shayla, that I think you're I mean, I'm not a mom, but my mom is a mom, and my mom is a mom, you're a mom, and, I don't want to diminish or anything when I say this, because like you said, you're like, "I'm a mom of a seven-year-old," but I wanna identify otherwise, such as, like, with me, I'm like, I don't always wanna identify as, "I'm Brooke and I'm an actor." Like, say who what you like to do, things like that. So your accomplishment as a mother, as a mom, that in and of itself, we may say is your biggest accomplishment in the
Yeah.
PCOS realm, right?
Yes.
But, we might also say another accomplishment, it's nowhere like it is, but it isn't weight loss. Like you and I talked about, lost s- substantial amounts of weight having a disease, if you will, an illness, a syndrome, we'll call it like that, a syndrome where it's very, very difficult to lose weight. So that's an accomplishment in and of itself. And my whole shtick with weight loss is that we're not losing weight because society tells us. We're losing weight because it's kind of like, for me at least, and I think this is what happened for you, but I'll believe me, we'll be telling many tales, and I'll be asking you many questions. Like it was the health aspect that precipitated and finally helped me lose weight as opposed to I have to be skinny because I have to look like this because that worked like maybe for a day and then I would start something new because that's why it's a fad diet because it doesn't really sustain you. So I realized PCOS, I'm in it for the long haul. How do I get healthy? And losing weight was a byproduct,
Mhm.
essentially, and at the same time, I knew I needed to lose weight to make my symptoms less. So we are going to talk about an accomplishment that you have, which is a substantial amount of weight loss. I'll let you tell everybody how much, how, all that jazz, but I did not want to, equate that with having a child because both are totally different types of accomplishments. But let's talk about the weight loss because that's what kind of Who's That Fat Girl is about embracing your body, whatever shape or size or wherever you are health wise. So tell us, what was that like initial spark for the weight loss? What were some of your quote unquote failed attempts? How did that all kind of begin?
Yeah, so I, like a lot of women, um, grew up with a mom who did a lot of yo-yo dieting.
Mhm.
My mom did Atkins, the Blueprint diet, Weight Watchers, everything and anything that she possibly could, and that
Mhm.
was my preview to, like, how you lose weight,
Yeah.
was follow this program and you restrict your eating, and then in 4 months, you give it up and try something else.
Yep.
Um, and I've never been the skinny girl my entire life.
Yep.
Like, my mom is half Japanese. I'm not blessed with height. I'm 5'1". Like, there's not a lot of frame to have weight on without
Right.
looking overweight.
Right. Right.
Um, so when I was in college, I tried Weight Watchers. It didn't really help. Nothing helped, like I mentioned. After I had my daughter, My ex-husband and I divorced, when she was 2 and a half,
Mhm.
and I also stopped nursing her at that same time.
Mhm.
So I knew my hormones were, like, settling, but also not settling because I have PCOS.
Mhm.
Um, and I spent about 8 months, kinda just figuring out, like, what the hell I'm doing as a single mom.
Right.
We moved out, I had to get a job, like, complete differences in my life than what I was planning on and what I'd expected and what I was, like, mentally thinking was my life.
Mhm.
So February of 2019, I started just looking into fasting. Um, I don't know, like, what prompted it. It might have honestly been a friend of mine who, practices, uh, religious fasting,
Right.
and they were coming up on a religious fast.
Right.
Um, and I was like, "Well, that's an interesting idea, like, let's look into this."
Mhm.
So, I started looking into fasting and found that there is a huge freaking population of people that fast for weight loss.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, shit. I
Mm.
can, like, skip breakfast.
Yeah.
That's fine." Um, so I officially started my fasting journey on February 20th of 2019. Um, 3 days prior to that, I'd been in a car accident
Whoa.
and totaled my Jeep.
Oh, love Jeeps. Sidebar, love Jeeps, but gosh, you totaled it. That was an intense accident.
So Portland gets, like, really sporadic snow and ice in,
Mhm.
like, February and March, and, I was waiting for my boyfriend to finish playing a video game, and I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna go for a drive and go get gas and get coffee and wait for him to be done." And I was coming onto an on-ramp, and my back tire got stuck in some slush and ice,
Ah,
and I fishtailed across the highway
whoa.
and hit a center barricade at, like, 40 miles an hour. Um, and, like, I worked for an insurance company at the time, and I got out and I was like, "Well, damn, this is totaled."
Yeah, you knew already. Oh god.
Thankfully, like, no one was in the car but me. It was just, like, the impact totaled the car, but it kinda made me pause and think about, like, my health and, like, just my body and stuff. Because I went to the ER afterwards to get checked out, and, like,
Right.
I saw the number on the scale, I saw my blood pressure, like, all of these vital signs, right?
Right.
Um So while I was home recuperating from my car accident for those 3 days, I was like, "Well, I guess this is the time to start fasting."
Right.
So when I went back to work that Monday, which I ended up quitting 2 days later, but, when I went back to work that Monday, I started with 16/8
Mhm.
fasting. So that's just skipping breakfast for most people.
Mhm.
Um,
That's what I
and
do, but I skip dinner. I think that's the one I do.
Yeah, some people choose to skip dinner, some people choose to skip breakfast. Um, one or the other is most common. No one seems to really skip lunch.
Right, that'd be too hard, right?
Yeah. Um, and I noticed that, like, I was losing weight.
Mhm.
I was being more conscious of what I was eating at lunch and dinner, but it wasn't like I was eating, pizza and tacos every day before. Like, I'm a pretty clean eater already.
Right.
Um, so it's not like I could really eat cleaner.
Right.
So I did that for probably like 3 months.
Mhm.
And then I changed jobs, and when I was at this new job, I realized I wasn't hungry at lunch. And
Mhm.
it was the kind of
Mhm.
job where, like, you aren't forced to take a lunch if you don't want to,
Mhm.
which was nice because I didn't want to take a lunch. I didn't want to have to sit there for an hour and, like, do nothing,
Yeah.
waiting for my lunch to be over for an hour, right? Because I wasn't eating. So I started looking into, like, well, can I do a longer fast?
Mhm.
Like, for my body, am I gonna, like, die of something,
Mhm.
right? And I found that a lot of people do OMAD, or 23/1 fasting,
Mhm.
which is 1 meal a day. So
Mhm.
you fast for 23 hours, and then you have a 1-hour feeding window, which
Wow, girl.
Everyone I tell that to, I feel like I'm telling them, like, I'm a vampire and that's my, like, feeding window that I have.
You are from the area where they did Twilight, so
Yes,
oh my god,
yes,
I know, I'm
Forks
such a
is,
geek
like, an
about it.
hour north of here.
I'm such a geek about that. But that's pretty intense, 23-1. You know, did you have anybody give you any flack? Like, "Oh, that's not healthy." Like, was anybody giving you any negative feedback? And you probably were like, "I don't care," or did you listen to any of that?
Yeah, so I had some people that were like, "Well, you know your body is gonna die of lack of nutrients after so long," and I was like, "Actually, it's not." Like, I did all the research on it. My
Mhm,
bachelor's degree is in history, and prior to that, I wanted to be a doctor. Like,
mhm,
research is what I like.
mhm.
So, I didn't just, like, jump into OMAD and be like, "Yeah, this is what I'm doing." Like,
Exactly.
I had so many research articles that I had read. I specifically then started looking into like OMAD and PCOS, right? Because
Ah,
I knew that part of PCOS is hormone and insulin dependent.
yes.
And if you're changing when you're eating, you're changing when your body is getting insulin and when you have insulin spikes. So it changes
Mm,
your hormone balance. Like it all starts to play together. Um, and I learned particularly that with OMAD fasting, um, you most people don't just like during their 1 hour feeding window, they aren't just like, cool, a steak, let me just dive in.
that's
You break
right.
your fast.
Mhm.
So I like bone broth.
Yeah, me
I
too.
make homemade bone broth in my Instapot
Oh,
every
nice.
when grocery prices are good every
Yeah,
couple of days, when
yeah,
they're like they are currently, it's like once every 10 days.
yeah.
Um, but I make bone broth and I break my fast with bone broth and then I move on to something like some nuts, pistachios, something small that
Mhm,
starts to get your stomach acids going,
mhm,
and then you can eat like a full meal.
mhm.
The great thing though is that like most people, unless you're like a, food eating champion, you're not going to eat so many calories in your 1 hour
Mhm.
that you're in a calorie, overage.
Right.
Most people are still going to be in a calorie deficit then.
Mhm,
So you notice that you're starting to lose weight because your body physically cannot have that many calories in it to consume it at one time. It's
mhm,
not being constantly refed throughout the day, so your body can actually utilize fat and
mhm,
yeah, some muscle, right? But mostly fat to
mhm,
feed you throughout the day for your
mhm.
energy.
You're feeding off your own fat, if you will,
Yeah,
right?
and
Fat with
I've
the F,
got plenty
yeah.
to go around. So
Hey, but you know, my grandpa used to say this thing. He used to say, "The less you eat, the less hungry you get." And I would be like, "Whoa, Poppy," but I'm, like, starving sometimes, and you know, the fasting, though, my Poppy, my grandpa was right. Your body and, like, going with the religious fasting, sometimes I feel like I'm eating just to eat. Still to this
yep,
day, I've lost 100 pounds, and I still feel like I'm eating just to eat, whether if it is that I'm working from home and I literally work in my kitchen, or
yep.
that, you know, I'm on a film set and there's crafty all around and I'm eating because the food is free and,
Yeah,
gourmet and delicious and it's
why
right
why
there and it's
not?
free, why not? But it's like when you're fasting, you are being whether it's for religious or health reasons, you are being more conscious of your body, what you're doing, and sometimes when you're eating, I have to say to myself, "Brooke, are you really hungry? Are you eating for another reason?" So it
Yep,
makes you more mindful. So for people who are, you know, like, have any negativity or hating on the fasting, or if people are like, "Well, medically," every body is different. Your body, and my body, they're different even though we both have PCOS. Everybody's body is literally different, and you found out and literally listened to your body. It took,
mhm,
you know, like, for you, it was, you're totaling your Jeep, and that was like your come to Jesus moment, if you will. everybody has different moments where we have to listen and then re-listen to our bodies. My
Mhm.
question is, how did you feel energetically? Were you like tired? Were you able to exercise? Were you like, oh my God, like how am I going to get through?
Yeah, so it's interesting because when you start fasting, you're constantly thinking about food. You're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, it's been 8 hours since I last ate. When do I get to eat again?"
Yeah.
But it's not like you aren't filling your body and your belly with things. You can have water, you
Hmm.
can have black coffee, you can have tea. As
Hmm.
long as you're not there's 2 like, a technical side and then a not technical side. As long as you're not having more than 50 calories with
Hmm.
that constitutes carbs or sugars in your fasting time, that
Hmm.
doesn't count as breaking your fast. If you go over 50 calories or it's carbs or sugar, your body and stomach acid starts to produce certain not bacteria, but like chemicals to break food down. And that's what we're trying to get out of during the fasting time is that you need your belly to stop producing those so that it utilizes fat instead of what you're putting into your stomach for nutrition.
Hmm.
So I drink so much water throughout the day when I'm fasting, and everyone if you're exercising, what are you reaching for? Usually water,
Water.
right? Unless you're like a super powered athlete and you have like your sports drinks or whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, I can't do that sugary intake of drinks.
Right.
So I'm not gonna reach for a Gatorade. I'm gonna reach for water.
Hmm.
Like that's what it is for me.
Yeah.
Um so, people think they're gonna be hungry all the time, and then you forget how long it's been since you ate. You're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, huh, I guess I hadn't realized it had already been 12 hours."
Wow.
Like, you're like, "Oh, okay. I wasn't hungry," because you're
Right.
still feeding your body with fluid, right? You're still
Right.
going pee, like and I'm just gonna say, I drink black coffee every single morning, and it is very satisfying being cleared out in the mornings.
Yeah. Word.
Like
Yeah, I'm debating a colonic for these
yeah,
very
it
purposes. So yeah.
it's pretty much a daily colonic that you
Yeah, heck
get,
yeah. Yeah.
and, like, no complaints there. Um, I also will say that here in Oregon, cannabis is legal, so I do use
Mhm.
cannabis to help if I'm really dragging. Like, I'll use that to help give me more energy, or if I'm struggling to sleep because I'm like, "I really want more ice cream or
Mhm.
some more desserts," or like that damn Chex Mix that's on my bedside, that's what I
Wait, it
want,
doesn't give
really.
you the munchies?
No.
No.
S but I've used cannabis for years, and, like,
Mhm.
it's part of my daily regimen of how
Mhm.
I manage my PCOS. I don't use
Whoa, this is fascinating.
I'm not on any, like, mental health medications.
Amen.
Um, I exclusively use cannabis for my management of mental health shit,
Heck
for
yeah,
lack
and
of
I
better terms.
highly condone that. Jersey recently legalized it, so hell yeah. I
Yeah.
just use CBD oil because I'm afraid I used to, I mean, you're being very polite in the way you say it. So do cannabis? I was just gonna say smoke pot. I
Yeah,
used to,
yeah.
but because, like, the smoking itself, I stopped smoking cigarettes. The smoking of the pot, it would, kind of like I didn't like the sensation of it, like, physically, but, oh god, I loved it. But I would eat like a beast, and when people ask me how I originally lost weight, one of the things was that I stopped it, but then again, we're talking 20 years ago. Everything has changed. A lot has changed, and maybe I
It
had some
has.
crazy ass Long Island strains, because.
Yeah, so my partner uses cannabis medically
Mhm.
for a kidney condition that he has. So my introduction to cannabis was through him as
Mhm.
a medical patient, not as
Yeah,
a recreational stoner who doesn't care about things.
yeah,
So he got me into like looking at the specific strains. What
yes,
strains am I using for specific ailments? What terpenes are in these strains that yield specific things? So, it was a very, like, medicinal and research-based approach to it. So, we grow certain strains in our backyard so that I have the specific strains that I use for my PCOS year round. Uh,
Nice. I wish we were neighbors, man, or, like, shipping it was legal.
right?
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's part of my entire life, and, like, I'm thankful that my partner is extremely supportive of me doing what I need to do for my PCOS
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
it's, being on metformin is great if that's what works for you, but it didn't work for me, and
Same.
there is no medication that is specifically for PCOS
Yep,
to help with the struggles. It's
yep.
everything's just white labeled for it of this,
Mhm.
of this, of this, and, like, I don't wanna be on a whole regimen of medications to help symptoms that I could use cannabis for
Yep,
instead,
yep. It's
like
true, because they're just throwing different medication at you, which give you different symptoms,
yeah,
metformin gave me the runs, just
mhm,
gonna say it, it gave me the runs. Birth control made me faint in the middle of the street in Brooklyn once. Spironolactone made me have to pee and urinate all the time. If I was still
yeah,
on it, I'm sure, like, the kidney stone and pelvic floor issues I've had would be even worse. I'm not saying spironolactone gives you kidney stones, but I believe, it eventually does affect your kidneys. Spironolactone is usually what they give for, like,
any medication is gonna
nitrazone.
eventually
It's
affect your kidneys.
eventually go exactly, because it's filtering out through the kidneys,
Yes.
So and my dad is diabetic, and he has stage 4 kidney disease, and he's on a shit ton of meds, and
Yeah,
I hate it because the doctors, I especially think back home and because I'm not there with him to fight them or to fight him, but it's not all on me. I feel like if he would have, like, been a lot more careful about what he eats for his diabetes and maybe gotten on some medical marijuana a long time ago, he wouldn't have as many issues because of all these medicines they throw at you. And like you were
yeah,
saying, for PCOS, it's just a symptom masker. Any medicine they will give you is a symptom masker. And I know I'm
mhm,
preaching to the choir, you and I both know, but I want our listeners to understand this, how it's like, okay, we're not really going to treat what's going on. If you really want to treat what's going on, you have to, I hate to say it, but kind of do it yourself or seek out fellow people like us, sisters, if you will, with the sisters with a CY, acupuncture to really get to the root cause, like what Shayla did with the intermittent fasting, what I did with, like, the fasting in a sense, and also the lifestyle and food
mhm,
changes. That's getting to the root, covering up the symptoms with medication. How would we be living when we're 60 or 70 years old? I don't know. So I love that. Like, it's so funny that, like, Facebook connected us and that we're not just PCOS people, but we're very much like au naturel, like, screw this because medicine kind of screwed us over in a sense. Like, not
yeah.
completely, we're not dissing it completely, into each his own, but I love that you've found what works for you, and tell us, because I always say it's not about the number, but people still do like the numbers because that's kind of my hook, that I lost 100 pounds, whoop-de do, but people, like, people do get lured in or want to learn more about how the hell we did it. How much did you lose? How have you still been doing the intermittent fasting? How long did it take? All that kind of technical stuff that people just love to hear.
Yes. So, I mentioned I started fasting February of 2019.
Mhm.
I jumped into the 23/1 OMAD fasting by April of 2019, and I fasted doing that until we're in 2023, until pretty much, January of 2023. So
Whoa! So for almost 4 years?
yeah, so, like, I fasted, like, significantly for a while, um, and then, life things happened, and
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
January, I it's not that I needed to, like, set it aside, I just couldn't think about it at the moment and put it aside for fasting and just, like, ate whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I listened to my body,
Yeah,
really is what it was.
word. Yeah.
Um, I wasn't getting a lot of sleep at the time for things going on in life,
Mhm.
and no amount of coffee was helping. So at that point, like, you gotta feed yourself. Um, and I did notice over the last, like, 9, 10 months, like, I've put on some of the weight that I did lose. So I
Mhm.
am back to fasting right now, because I did find a lot more mental clarity. when I was fasting.
Yes, that's what I was gonna ask you about that we had talked about previously, that it brought about mental clarity. Talk about that because that's something I was recently talking about with my acupuncturist where sometimes it's like if I feel like a little, oh, weird or I've been having vertigo with dizziness, let me go reach for some nuts. And you don't always have to reach for the food, you have to listen to your body first. So talk
Yes.
about that mental clarity. I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, so I just find that, like, as someone who has ADHD,
Yeah.
I have a
Yep.
lot of, like,
Yep.
pinging going on in my brain
Me, yep.
constantly.
Yep.
And when I'm feeding the pings that are like, "We're hungry. There's snacks in the cupboard. You just made apple pie cinnamon rolls and they're sitting on the counter right now."
Ooh.
Like, which I did. I made those this morning.
Nice.
Um, but, like, if I give in to all of those pings, I would just be eating all the time.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
the other pings are like, "Hey, let's work for our clients. Let's get things done." And, like, if I focus on that, everything's better. I'm
Mhm.
not focusing on eating then. So that's like the biggest mental clarity part for me. So between fasting for, 3.5, almost 4 years to stopping fasting and back to fasting, total overall, I've lost about 65 pounds.
Wow, that's
So
wonderful.
yeah. Um, I didn't do any sort of like exercise stuff.
Mhm.
In the midst of COVID, we got a dog, so I walk him um more than I did before having a dog.
Tell us what kind of
Um
dog really quick, because 'cause we're all dog people. I'm
he's
saying we,
a
but
he's a red and white Siberian husky.
oh, yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, his name is Strawberry. My
Aw.
7-year-old named him.
Yeah, I was about to say yes.
Yeah, he's the goodest of boys.
Yeah.
He argues with me about the same as my 7-year-old does.
Yeah.
Uh,
But he will make you that's a very active breed. So
yeah.
he'll make you, like, walk or, like,
Yeah, so
do
thankfully, like, the neighborhood we live in, we don't have any sidewalks in the neighborhood, because 'cause we're, like, tucked away, but when it's nice weather, he and I can go for, like, a 3 to 5 mile walk every day.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, and, like, we're powering through, like, I've got my serial killer podcast in, like,
Yeah.
you know, we're all doing good. We usually stop if we're doing that, we'll stop at, a coffee shop and get him, like, a little pup cup,
Yeah.
um, for being a good boy and be on our merry way. Um, but yeah, he definitely keeps me active. My 7-year-old keeps me very active. But it's not like I go to the gym and work out for 30 minutes on cardio and then lift weights and then go
Right.
do this. Like
I
it's
must do this. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I rake my giant yard of leaves and I mow the giant yard and do gardening and like other things that are gonna build muscle and use my body the way it needs to be
Mhm.
without focusing on, like, a number I'm lifting at the gym or miles ran or anything like that.
Right. And, I've been doing a lot of research on the exercise component for PCOS too. And going along with what you've said, you're so right. Moving how your body, how our ancestors moved, how we are or were designed to move because I joined a gym and I literally have not lost weight. And I didn't really do it to lose weight. I did it to exercise and have fun, but I was always a big home exerciser or doing thing I mainly joined it for the pool, but it's like I see so many people and I get anxiety when I go there
Yes.
because the people are doing their reps and I mean, this is Jersey, so people have fake eyelashes and a full face of makeup on at the
Oh,
gym,
that's
which
here
like
too.
that really?
Yeah.
Whoa! I was wondering if it was just a Jersey thing. Okay.
No, that's here too, and then
Whoa.
I, like, show up with, like, no makeup and honestly probably reeking of weed,
Hey,
and,
and like my
like
t-shirt, like, I mean, I wear like a t I don't have any fancy athletic gear, right?
yeah, I don't have, like, my Stanley Cup and, like, my fresh Nikes, no, I'm, like,
Yeah,
rocking old torn up shoes, like,
yeah,
probably gonna stand there looking at the machines of, like, "Huh, how do we do this one again?"
yeah,
Like
for real, like, ugh, and it's like, it does get boring in a sense, especially like the weightlifting is so daunting. And I think that's how like I messed up my vertigo. And with PCOS, they say don't overdo exercise. Yes, you need to exercise, but the kind of exercise you're getting in is wonderful. You don't want to overdo it. I do Zumba just like once a week or twice a week. I was doing it 4 or 5 times a week. That's actually too much
That's
cardio.
a lot. That's a
And
lot of Zumbaing.
oh, too much, man, because it can rev up your cortisol, and we have to keep our cortisol not so revved up. So yes, I'm not saying Brooke and Shayla are saying don't do exercise. No, we're saying move how your body needs to, especially our PCOS sisters. You don't want to berate yourself with exercise or over exercise. There is
Yeah.
that fine line. So like lunges are better than like running and doing like, a million high knees, for example,
Yeah.
strength building, and that's what you're doing with straw BOE. Um,
Yes.
your dog. So I am still intrigued by this fasting for 23 hours, eating for 1 hour, the 23-1 OMAD, one meal a day, mind blown. But I'm really glad that you found what works for you.
Yeah.
And, um, you've said you like about 65 pounds, but
Yep.
it's brought about mental clarity. And, has it helped with any other of the PCOS symptoms? Like, for me, for example, I noticed when I lost weight, it's still not perfect, that the facial hair growth, but it did get 75% better. That's
Yeah,
one
so
example.
I struggled a lot with, acne. It wasn't
Oh,
just, like,
word. Your
around
skin is
my period.
beautiful.
Well, my skin looks beautiful right now, but when I
Because
am not fasting, I
Mhm.
break out so much more. I'm
Word.
constantly breaking out and really, like, deep, painful, you know, uh
Cystic, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
When I'm fasting, I find that my skin is so much clearer. Like overall my health is better, my hair is better. Like it's amazing how much like when I'm eating 24 hours a day essentially, right?
Yep.
when I'm when I eat whenever I want, I find that my body doesn't like have bowel movements as regularly,
Mhm.
and when I do, they're not as like the way they're supposed to be.
Right, I know
That
it's
makes sense.
exactly what you
I
mean.
get more backed up, but then
Yep.
when I'm fasting, it's, like, very regular, very predictable, like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna wake up in the morning, I'm gonna have my coffee, 15 minutes later, we're gonna go to the bathroom,
Yep.
we're all cleared out, we're good to go for the day.
Yep.
Like
It's your regimen. You're putting your body, it's responding to the regimen.
yes, and, of course, there's days where I'm like, "Shit, I'm so hungry," and I will break my fast early,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
that's listening to my body. There's
Yep.
also other days where I'm like, I'm not hungry at dinner time. I'm gonna have a really light dinner because
Mhm.
I know that tomorrow I have whatever to do with Lauren and I
Right.
am not gonna be home at my normal feeding time.
Right.
Um, and I think that's one of the biggest things with fasting to this degree is that you learn very quickly, am I hungry or am I bored?
Word.
Am I thirsty or am I bored?
Right. Mhm.
And then you start to notice like what foods make you feel good. I don't know if
Yeah.
you struggle with eating fruit, but for me, I cannot eat fruit. Um, it sucks because I would live off of fruit if I could. But that spike in insulin from fructose
Mhm.
leads me straight to the bathroom.
Mhm.
When I fast, I then have my nice big meal at dinner time. I can have small amounts of fruit after I've had that meal because
Mhm.
my body isn't trying to eat so much fructose with nothing in front of it.
Right.
So, there's small things that are blessings in disguise with fasting for me because I can enjoy small things of fruit that I
Mhm.
couldn't before.
Right.
What I put into my body, I pay a lot more attention to. If certain meats do better than others, like I make note of that and I adjust accordingly.
Right.
So,
I'm fascinated by this, and it's actually inspiring me, even though I kind of do my own little, like, oh, what did we say? I'm on like the 16/8 fasting.
yeah.
I think I might shake things up even more by maybe. Well, it's 4:28 my time, so I probably will finish eating by 5, but honestly, being even more mindful with what I'm eating and starting even maybe later because sometimes it's like I'm with the actors strike. I'm not waking up at like 4 in the morning. I'm waking up at like 5:30, but
Yeah.
I can keep going, you know. So it's like you
Yeah.
don't always need to eat breakfast right away. Listen to when you get hungry. And I'm not saying some people are like, oh, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. For some people, it is not for everyone.
Yeah.
Every body is different, and that's what you've learned because you break your fast around, is it like 6, 7 o'clock? So you eat dinner.
Um, it depends on what activities we have going on in the afternoons.
True. Okay.
Usually, it's somewhere between, like, 4:30 and 5:30. Since
Okay.
I start making dinner around 5, I'm very much someone that wants to taste test the dinner that I'm feeding my
Heck
child.
yeah.
So, I'll break my fast as I'm making dinner. That way, as we sit down to dinner, I am at a point where I can eat that entire meal without any worries. Um, and, crap, I was gonna tell you something about, there's an app that I use called Zero,
Okay. Zero.
Zero,
Okay.
and it, allows you to, like, track your fast. So you can, like, click start fast, and then you can do preset fasting, like 16:8 or 24 or 22:2 or 23:1, whatever you want.
Mhm.
And it gives you, like, little helpful tidbits of information throughout the time. So once you reach a certain amount of hours into your fast, it'll say like, you're now in this stage of fasting and like this is what your body is doing. And like it's fascinating to learn.
Mhm.
Because then you start to learn like, okay, what I'm feeling is actually this happening. It's
Right,
my
right.
body releasing this enzyme that's doing X, Y, and Z, as opposed to I'm hungry and that's a hunger pain. So
Ah,
I like
that's
using
pretty
it.
cool.
Yeah, it's nice and it gives you, like, little green check marks when you've completed your fast and, like, badges, so if you like little hits of dopamine as a neurodiverse person, it's great
Yeah,
for it.
little badge. Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna have to check this out, especially since I already fast and I've just been doing it just as myself alone, so this will
Yeah,
be fun to check out. Shayla, we're gonna wrap up our episode, but we have what I'm calling lately the rapid fire fatness, that's fat with a PH. Just some random questions that I love asking everyone because it's basically what my the Who's Dat Fat Girl podcast is about and what inspires me. So,
yeah.
do you have a favorite childhood memory associated with food? I have many, as we know, but what's one of
Ooh.
yours?
So my mom was adopted, so her adoptive family is here in the US,
Mhm.
and that's who I called my grandparents, and my adoptive grandma is from Hawaii, so we spent a lot of time in Hawaii eating Hawaiian food. And
Nice.
one of my favorite memories probably is coming out when I was, I don't know, like 8 or 9 to a tray like this tall stacked of sushi. Um,
Whoa!
and at the time, I did not appreciate sushi the way I do now,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't eat a single piece of it. I just ate like California rolls essentially
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, other things that didn't have fish in it. So just that image of, like, a tower of sushi is probably a favorite food memory for me.
Oh, I love that, and I have not even though I've only interviewed people who I know, like, personally so far, I we have not had that, so I love that, and that's funny because that was my boyfriend and I's first date, we ate sushi, and I just
Nice.
kind of realized that, I love that, but I'm glad that you now like sushi because
Oh, yeah.
it's so fun. Oh, that's fascinating. Whoa, my thing was knocked, my iPad thought that was fascinating too, I love that. Now we know, and I think you and I told some tales about this too, maybe a little bit when we talked on the phone, but like the whole idea of a guilty pleasure, I don't really like that because we shouldn't shame or guilt ourselves around food. Like, let's get away from that conversation, but let's use that term just for shits and giggles. Do you have a favorite quote unquote guilty pleasure food?
Chex Mix.
Chex Mix. So salty or like do you do the muddy
No, no,
buddies?
no, no, I want, like okay, they make Chex Mix powder that you can get to make your own Chex Mix, okay?
Okay.
The best thing is to get a Chex Mix Bold package
Uh-huh.
and then take the Chex Mix powder and put it onto the Chex Mix Bold to make it Chex Mix extra, extra bold.
Oh my
That's what I
gosh.
like.
Hey,
Very
so you like the
salty.
crunch, you like the crunch, and
Yeah.
that you like my boyfriend Harry loves, like, it's called Cajun snack mix, a lot of
Okay.
random places, Big Lots has it. He loves that, so y'all are crunch, like, salty
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
Oh, now on the flip side, do you have a favorite healthy food?
Oh, favorite healthy
Or a
food.
food that
Let's
you cook a lot that is like well, bone broth is one of them, but, like, something
Yeah.
that you really love.
Um, Aside from bone broth, I would probably say, and I say this is a healthy food, but scrambled eggs.
Yeah, it is
Like,
healthy.
I they're like a poor people food, but I would eat them for breakfast, lunch, dinner if I ate breakfast and lunch. And
Yeah, yeah, good, good. Yeah.
I would eat them every day. I
Mhm.
love eggs. Scrambled is great. What my daughter calls is oaky eggs, so sunny
What's
side up
oaky?
eggs.
Sunny side oats,
Yep,
sunny side
she
oats,
can't
I
say
said sunny side
yolk,
up. Oh, yolk.
so she called
Ah,
oaky.
that's
Um,
cute.
but yeah, no, eggs are my favorite non-junk food.
That's funny. That it took me forever. My friend Jen had to get me into eating eggs. She was like one day she was staying over at my house and Jen listens to the podcast, so we'll give her a shout out. But she was like, "Girl, Missy, you're gonna have to learn how to like eggs. We're on we're on a tight budget, and it's a good way to get your vegetables in. We'll just add a shit ton of vegetables, and you'll eat eggs." And I
Yep.
started eating omelets. So eggs are
Yes.
great because vitamins, protein, and you're right, aside from, like, that crazy price and egg spike when remember the eggs, like, got very pricey, I think was that about a
Yes.
year ago? Knock on wood, like, they're one of the more affordable sources of protein, and, I don't does Strawberry like eggs? Like, we cook eggs sometimes and put little bits in for Annie and
Yeah,
Archie.
he likes everything that humans like besides fruits and vegetables.
Hey, represent. Strawberry. And, 2 more questions. Do you have, like, a healthy lifestyle mantra or something that you tell yourself or that tries to bring you back to, like, grounding when things feel weird?
Um, One is kinda just, like, listen to your body.
Yeah.
Um, and from there, it's also like, yeah, there's gonna be days where you eat like shit,
Mhm.
and then there's gonna be days where you eat really, really healthy, and I try to look at my health and lifestyle from a big picture standpoint as opposed to,
Yeah.
like, this specific day,
Oh, that's
right?
really good, Shayla.
Um, because you can't see the progress every single day. You see the progress
Mhm.
when you step back and you're like, "Huh." So, like, Facebook has been great because Facebook memories pop up with all of these pictures from before
Mhm.
I lost weight, when I was in college, and when I got married, and all of these times where I know how I felt inside and I know how I felt on the outside. And
Mhm.
now I see myself of how I know how I feel on the inside and how I feel on the outside, and it's night and day because
Mhm.
I've listened to my body over the last
Yeah.
couple of years to do what's best for it.
Nice.
It's
And
a
that
really long mantra,
No,
but
that's a good mantra because it also helps me sometimes because lately in the past couple weeks, I've been doing this thing where I'm beating myself up. And it's like, Brooke, chill out. You had 2 granola bars instead of 1 today. Like, relax. And so that's it's true. You have to like take it kind of not just it's not real it is day by day, but it's also not day by day. It's like that happy medium of like, step back, look at the big picture. It's
yeah.
big picture. Not every day is gonna be perfect. Like,
And,
that's
like,
not
some
life.
days, your body is going to consume more calories
Mhm.
naturally because
Yep.
you are within days of your period, right?
Yes,
Like,
exactly. We're
so you're
human.
gonna be hungrier, and you're like, "Well,
Yes.
why am I hungrier?" Because your body is doing more work.
Right,
Like,
your body needs it. Your body's fixing to bleed
yeah,
a lot, or your body's ovulating and it's dropping that egg down, which is like
yeah.
gross way to put
So,
it, but yeah.
listening to your body is really, really helpful.
Yeah, and listening to your body instead of listening to all the noise, and I'm glad
Yes.
we're as a society, I feel and hope we're going more that way, at least as opposed to where we were like 10, 20, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
And Shayla, we're going to end it with one of my, I say one of my favorite questions. I guess it's a very loaded question, but we're going to throw that word fat pretty hot and tempting in here. Was there a time, one time or moment or a series of moments that you remember where you really you found your inner fat girl pretty hot and tempting? And that can be on any shape or form. Doesn't have to be with red lipstick and a black dress.
Yeah, so it's funny you ask that because most people that know me at some point in our friendship have commented on the size of my booty.
Hey!
And it's always been a very self-conscious thing for me because when you go jean shopping, they
Yeah,
don't fit the way they're supposed to,
yeah.
and then dresses right up more. There's so many problems with it. When I was in college, one of the first times that I ever wore black leggings, my best friend and I, at the time were walking across the quad to go to the gym. Okay, we're like,
Uh-huh.
we're gonna go to the gym and start working out and go to the sauna afterwards. We're walking across, and it's like 10 p.m. at night, so like dark. And from across the quad, we hear, "Damn, look at that ass."
Ah!
And she turns to me and goes, "They're not talking about me because I don't have a booty. They're talking about you." And in the moment, I was so like mortified, right? Because I'd
Uh-huh.
never had that happen to that extent.
Uh-huh.
And I realized, like, yes, that's very much being catcalled, 100%.
Right.
But looking back on it throughout the years, that's always been my pivotal of like, at least I've got a nice ass that someone's willing to call across the quad at night to let me know.
Heck
So that's
yeah!
probably like, my fat girl moment there is having a nice booty that someone called out.
Heck yeah! And that's a great fat girl moment. I
Yeah.
love it. Represent, I love it. Shayla, I know you have to go pick up your daughter. Lauren's her name?
Yes,
Lauren
Lauren.
from school. So we are wrapping this. Like, I must say, I don't want, I'm like, well, hormones. Speaking of hormones, I like don't. I am legit almost fixing to cry because it's just really funny how the universe and Facebook, yes, and artificial intelligence, maybe, but definitely the universe connected us. We're
Yeah.
now newfound friends. Newfound or new friends. I love this connection. I'm so grateful that you had the cojones to email me and contact me and say, I'm going to go out on a limb and reach out to Brooke. And I'm like, whoa, wait, I'm the one who should be honored. Like, this is awesome. I think we both have a similar mission, which is to help other people who are going through PCOS or body image issues, whatever anyone's going through. I think we share a mission to just talk about it, make people feel better, and to
Yeah.
maybe share some laughs and smiles and love. So I'm so grateful we met.
Me
And
too.
thank you so much. We're going to end the podcast here, but we'll stay on for just another minute for me to tell you how awesome you were.
Thank you for having me, Brooke.
Of course. You're welcome. Thanks so much for listening, y'all. It is my hope to inspire, uplift, and entertain you with this Who's Dat Fat Girl podcast. So, if you're hungry for more, you can book me to speak or perform my solo show that inspired this podcast, Fat Girl Costumes, written by yours truly and directed by Brian Lady at your virtual or in-person event. Please visit brookehoover.com/fluffybuttproductions or email me at contactbrookhoover@gmail.com for more info. And let's follow each other on Instagram. I'm at Brooke Hoover, and the O's in my name are not the letter O, they're zeros. Not because I want to be a size 0, but because I guess I'm just so clever with my late 90s Yahoo self. And if you like this podcast, which I really hope you do, please give me a 5-star rating and write a review on Apple Podcasts. And most importantly, share this with your friends, family, and other people you may know who are as fat as we are. That's fat with a PH.